the likelihood of you wanting to go back to a 9 to 5 job is going to be near zero. One day you're on top of the world because your client paid you so much money, and then the next week you have a fight and he doesn't pay you as much. I'm in my 30s now. How much longer I go stay in the industry? For an hour of my time on this day, I could be earning $1,000 with another guy. I was watching him do drugs that was out there. It's just constant lying, and one lie leads to another. Over time, that cognitive dissonance became too much for me to bear. I think your last video was about whether it's possible to retire from sex work, OnlyFans now. And OnlyFans is the retirement plan.
In today's video, we will be delving into the world of a former sex worker and hearing all about her time in the industry and why she left. Today's conversation took me by surprise. I thoroughly enjoyed chatting with my guest today. And if you know Wendy Williams, this reference is going to make sense. If not, probably not. But I left today's conversation feeling like this guest is a friend in my head.
She is a friend in my head.
And I hope you find today's video interesting. Regardless of what industry you're in or what age you are, I feel like there are a great number of us who could potentially relate to some of the things our guest shared today. I know I certainly did. Let's get into it. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I go by that was my online name. I am 34 years old this year, and I started in the industry when I was 26. So quite a long time. A bit about my background. I studied at university. I had a corporate job, and after quite a bit of burnout, I took a sabbatical for a year, and then I was trying to find ways to make money online, and I came across cam modeling, and that's how I got into it, basically. There's a stereotype that a lot of girls that get into it are all young and naive and lack education and all that, but there's such a diversity of women who get into the industry from varying socioeconomic backgrounds and the rest. Even my friends and that were all different types of women.
My first questions are, so you said that you started when you were 26.
26.
So how long were you working in your corporate job?
So I did a Bachelor of Business in Marketing, and I worked at a corporate job for 3 years or so. I was making pretty decent money as well, but I think like a lot of girls that get into the industry, you have this sort of crisis of who am I? What do I want to do with my life? And I quit my corporate job, didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. And then I got to a point where I was like, I need to earn money somehow. And so I thought, let me just try it. And it's funny, I bought my webcam initially to become an online English teacher, because at the time, the whole digital nomad thing was really big. And then I just happened to come across, webcam modeling. I tried it the first day, and I made 250 USD in 2 hours. And from there, I was like, you know what? Screw the English teaching. I'm just going to pursue this. And it just grew from that. And it's interesting. I think in my experience, the most successful girls and the ones that make the most money are kind of the ones that go in with little expectation. It sort of grows bigger than what they are. Wow. That's most girls that I've met, that it just, yeah.
I have so many questions. My brain is just like, and how many years were you in it for, do you think? And what do you remember what year it would have been? Like, was it during the COVID time?
So it was the beginning of 2019.
Okay, so that's when you started.
Yeah.
And then how long did you do it for?
I quit last year around April or so, but I have a lot of contacts on my phone still. So it's been one of the hardest years of my life. I'm not going to deny that. And yeah, as we go on, I think you'll understand why that is as well.
One question actually that I had a lot was, what exactly is like a cam girl? What's camming?
So basically, if people have heard of Twitch streaming, it's live streaming. So you're streaming to a live audience in front of viewers, and they pay you, you interact with them, you get naked, they can pay for shows or whatever you choose you want to do. So
that's
$100 and I'll take off my top or whatever. But it's also a lot of intimate things as well. Like the majority of my money was made through one-on-ones, Skype shows. So it's very interactive. Yeah. It's yeah. Basically what we're doing now.
more. So the one-on-one shows, you could obviously see the person, but
yeah, sometimes depending on what they were comfortable with. A lot of men who had fetishes or things like that would, pay me, and we would have an interaction one-on-one. So quite a bit different from OnlyFans in the sense that OnlyFans, it's not very interactive with your audience. Most of these big creators outsource their messaging and they rarely interact to the consumer directly. Whereas with webcam modeling, it's direct. And you're entertaining.
Speaking of entertainment, I do want to quickly interject to thank today's video sponsor, Midas Merge. Midas Merge is an iOS and Android game that takes me into the adorable world that I can access from my phone. They have the cutest little creatures. This one kind of reminds me of Flitty. Essentially, you hatch and evolve them by merging items in the game. You team up with King Midas and Queen Leah to revive the Gardens of Gold, which are under the shadow of Nyx, the goddess of night. Midas Merge is completely free to download and perfect for offline play with 0 ads. I love the fact that there is no Wi-Fi needed. I am taking a number of long-haul flights this year, and I just love that I can play this game on these long-haul flights in between my Netflix binges and my sleeping. So whether you have a few long-haul flights coming up this year or you just want a nice way to relax and unwind that doesn't involve doom scrolling, I'd suggest giving Midas Merge a try. You can be among the first 100 to install via my link or the QR code, and you get to receive a unique MoxFox level 1. This little guy boosts your garden's progress and will be personalized with my name. If you're looking for a new game to download, check out Midas Merge.
So it could be I was quite popular. That sounds so arrogant. But yeah, I could be entertaining 200, 300, 400, 500, 6.
Time?
Yeah, at a time. I did do Twitch for a period, and during COVID I was getting like 2,000 viewers.
Twitch like an adult platform as well?
Twitch is an adult platform, but a lot of girls will stream on Twitch in order to drive their traffic to OnlyFans or whatever, or you cultivate an audience and men tip you. Yeah, a lot of OnlyFans girls do that as well. So
what made you said that you got into camming because of you were having kind of like this little crisis moment that we were both through. I mean, I'm in one right now, so if that makes you feel third one. But what made you stay with that and not go into the OnlyFans realm?
Because I love human interaction. And I don't know if it's the millennial in me, but I cannot be fucked taking photos and video content. I always found that really draining. And as vain as I am, I'm not the type to like take selfies and the rest of that. And I think this is another thing with OnlyFans, it's a volume-based economy. And as someone from an Asian background who wants to remain more private, there's more privacy when it comes to cam modeling. You could be making so much money and be relatively unknown because most of your income can be coming from a small subset of guys versus OnlyFans. It's really about marketing yourself to a wider group of guys, which is good in a way, because if you lose one guy, another one replaces him just as easily because they're only spending $5, $10. But with me, live streaming was appealing because I really love talking to people. I love it. I love it.
Like, what percentage of your work was talking?
Oh, it was all talking. If anything, my friends would joke to me and say that I was able to make money from men doing very little sexual. It was mostly talking. It was men wanting my company and even entertain. I would get paid to eat online, Uber Eats. I would get paid to, even guys would tip me to keep my clothes on or
Wow.
whatever, like it was, and it just speaks for how lonely society is, I guess.
Yeah, that makes me really sad.
Yeah, I think for me, and maybe you can relate, you lack a sense of purpose or you don't know what you want to do with yourself. And when I stumbled upon camming and I was interacting with these men one-on-one, it gave me a sense of fulfillment in a way. And for someone who was lacking identity as a younger woman, that was really appealing. And the money was a byproduct of what I thought represented love and affection, of value. I think that's another reason why it's so addictive. Yeah. The money, it's not just about the money itself, but what it represents to your low self-esteem. It means that someone is willing to pay for your time or your effort. They care about you. But yeah,
really interesting.
We'll get into that, why that, that delusion kind of shattered progressively.
Okay, so
yeah.
I mean, at the time, like going back to the whole loneliness discussion,
yeah.
I mean, in a way, it was also fulfilling sense of purpose for you because am I wrong in saying that? Because I mean, you said that you quit your job because you were having this kind of moment.
Yeah.
Were you kind of like, what was your life like? What was it like back then? Like, were you surrounded with friends or family, or did you spend a lot of time alone? Did you feel like you needed, and have you kind of been someone who was really needing that interaction because you weren't?
No, I was, in a relation. Still, I'm in a relationship. Same guy. We broke up for a period of time, but I came from a very religious household. I undiagnosed ADHD as well, so that neurodivergent, and never felt like I fit in anywhere, or I lacked that sense of belonging and self-esteem, and also lack of autonomy, I guess, because I got into a relationship when I was quite young, 20, and up until then it was always me and my partner, us. Didn't have my own money, was living paycheck to paycheck. And suddenly, when I stumbled into the industry, I experienced my first sense of autonomy. I was making my own money. I was doing something that I thought gave me a sense of purpose, because I'd be talking to men. I mean, the guys that I interacted with range from, I don't know, 18 to 75.
Wow.
In all sorts of situations and socioeconomic backgrounds, of disabilities. And a lot of people don't think about this. They think, oh, it's all sad losers. But when you're talking to a man who has never really interacted with a woman before, is sitting in a wheelchair, or I had so many situations like that, and it enabled me to feel like I can console people through their loneliness, and through them they feel something in me. I think that's what I felt quite sad for the guy that you interviewed, the notion of parasocial relationships. For a lot of cam models, it's much the same. We find an attachment to our audiences as much as they have an attachment to us as well. That's probably why I became so successful in a way, because I developed that level of rapport with my clients. Yeah.
I've had this conversation with people in my real life as well, because this is something that fascinates me. And I will have people say, oh, well, these services should exist and are good for people who are experiencing loneliness or do have a disability. And look, I'm probably going to get cancelled for saying this, but so many times I'd be like, oh, come on, like in the scheme of things, percentage-wise, how many people with disabilities, are actually heading to the service? And maybe a large number, but also the fact that you brought that up to me shows that was quite a significant part of it for you. Like, it did make you feel good because you felt like you were doing something.
In the beginning when I was
okay.
still naive.
Okay. Right.
But progressively over time, I understood that although they are good guys and they are men like that, I can't dedicate my working life for a minority. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I wish I could, but unfortunately, no. And if anything, I understood that a lot of these men, I was enabling them.
Interesting.
I was enabling them because I was giving them access to me, and that didn't motivate them to get off the computer. And it created a weird dynamic that a lot of these men, I'm not talking about one or two interactions here and there. I'm talking across years. Some of these guys followed me from the very beginning of my career right up until the end. They would spend their weekly earnings on me, and in my naivety, you become entitled in a way because that represents love. And if they don't spend money on you, then do you not care about me or something? You know, it gets a bit like that. And yeah, well, I'm sure we'll go into that a bit more.
So just to be clear, I want to take it back for a second. So your partner, the one you're still with now, was the one that you were with when you got into the industry?
Yes, yeah.
And how did that conversation go? Like, hey, I'm thinking about camming, and like he was totally fine with that, and he was very supportive throughout.
I think at the time he was just as naive as I was, and I started, and we didn't realize the friction and that it would cause. And then we broke up for a period of time. But I think in a way it was good for us because it brought up a lot of the existing problems that we had that weren't addressed. And then upon getting back together, we went to a relationship counselor and were stronger than we've ever have been had we not gone through that experience. And it was not an easy experience at all.
I mean, I've seen interviews of people talking about how it's a healthy, like it's a completely fine part of their relationship and it's never caused issues. But I suppose, again, it's like a case by case basis and every relationship's different. So
to be honest, I'm extremely skeptical of that.
So you got back together though while you were still camming, and then that's when
Yeah. There was no way he could have made me quit because I would have resented him and accused him of taking away my autonomy. And so I had to come to that decision by myself, whilst at the same time that I had to respect his preferences. And him having preferences that I didn't do this work didn't mean that he wanted to control me. He loved me and was choosing to be with me. But of course, as a man, if he was going to choose, would I prefer my partner doing this or not? It would be no. Yeah. And again, as I sort of reevaluated my values and goals in life, increasingly, I did come to the decision on my own to quit.
Let's get into that. Like, how did you come to this decision? Actually, I mean, before we get into that, I want to ask the juicy questions. Like, you said you did really well. Like, how much did you make?
So in my first year, I paid $150K in taxes alone.
Oh, that's Australian?
Yeah, that was Australian. But I was earning anywhere between a lazy month, 15,000 USD. On a birthday month, I think I made about 60,000 USD a month. Yeah, so I was doing quite well.
Did you say on a lazy month, 15,000?
Yeah, like when I say lazy, I say that in quotation marks because the work is it's not easy by any means, but yeah.
So I mean, I've got the comments. People say, "Oh, like I don't believe these women are making as much as they think they are, as they say they are." But a lot of time, I fully believe that women.
My friends are making that money now, and they're a lot of them are currently active still. Yeah.
That was more than you were making in your corporate job, I would assume.
Oh, I was on a 80K. Well, this was back in 2017 before I took my sabbatical. I was making 80K AUD per annum. I think I was quite lucky though. Being an Asian woman in that space that spoke English, I definitely had a certain market and niche that propelled me to make that kind of money. Yeah.
Is it wrong to say that maybe you were fetishized or like?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So let me just take it back. I'm
Yeah.
mind blowing. So obviously, I'm going to make the assumption that you had never seen money like that coming in. Like, were you
Yeah.
kind of just like, how did you act? Like, how did you react? Did you go on a spending spree, or did your taste change?
Oh my gosh. One of the biggest topics that I speak about in therapy is financial regret because and that's something I reconcile with now that I've quit, that I will probably never earn that kind of money again. And that's a bit of a depressing thought. That's what I mean when I say a lot of the time you're not earning money for the money, you're earning money for what it represents to your low self-esteem. And this is why you buy things that you don't need. That's why you get sucked into the culture of getting the handbags and this and that. And I get sucked into it. Sometimes I'm sitting on the couch and I'm scrolling on my phone and I see a dress that I want to buy. I'm like, oof, wouldn't it be easy just to shoot a text to one of my former clients? A lifestyle creep, you just spend excessive amounts, and it takes a strong willpower to live below your means.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think if you didn't grow up with it and it just kind of like shows up, it's just completely different.
Yeah, I think in my first month, full-time sort of 9 to 5 hours, I made like 6 or 8,000 USD, which was a lot. That was still more than what I was earning in corporate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, that was extremely addictive. I became a bit of a workaholic during COVID. I was working 6 days a week. And if I was streaming online for 7, 8 hours offline, I was interacting with my high paying clients, phone calls, messages, all of that. And that's where a lot of the big money is. That's the other thing. With OnlyFans, it's volume based. With camming, I mean, there's also volume based, but a lot of it's like a boutique. People pay more for that exclusivity. Yeah.
Those relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So at that time when you were making all this money and you were working a lot and you could buy kind of more than what most people your age could have afforded, would you say that you were happy?
My ego was happy. But then you realize how fleeting everything is, One day you're on top of the world because your client paid you so much money, and then the next week you have a fight and he doesn't pay you as much, and then your self-esteem will drop to the floor. So it's like that as a sex worker, because your sense of self is so tied to external value. You feel amazing when you're doing really well, when you are popular, when a lot of people watching you, all of that. And then the next moment, when you're not doing as well for whatever reason beyond your control, that can really plummet your sense of self. And then that's where the questions come in. You compare yourself to other women, or am I not pretty enough? Am I not funny enough? Why aren't guys spending on me? What's wrong with my content? And
Oh my God.
I think a lot of the issues that affect women in the industry, they're relatable to all women, but it's just amplified.
That's what I was just thinking. I mean, these are questions that myself throughout my 20s and even sometimes now I still ask. I can't imagine how more amplified that would feel if it had to do with whether or not I could afford to pay my rent or pay my bills or live my lifestyle. I do grapple with this a little bit about, because I suppose from what it sounds like, you had some level of control, but then I guess in some ways and like power, and then in some ways the men that were your clients also had a sense of power and control, because if they didn't want to pay you or they didn't want to spend as much on you.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
That's something that's quite toxic about camming. It's the financial reliance you have on your audience and keeping people entertained, and there's so many things beyond your control. And it's I think your last video was about whether it's possible to retire from sex work, OnlyFans, and it's fine. OnlyFans is the retirement plan.
Yeah.
I have a friend now, she hasn't worked in a year and a half because her OnlyFans makes her money for her. They just recycle old content. Someone else manages all the messaging, so she can compartmentalize, and it's so far removed from her life that is the retirement plan. Whereas when you're a cam model or stripper, escort, whatever, it's very intrusive on your everyday life and your interactions with other people. Whereas, yeah, with OnlyFans, a lot of girls do it in order to quit. I know that sounds weird, but that's why a lot of girls I know have gotten into that avenue in the first place, unless their values drastically change. But I think that a lot of women who have done this work, they've already reconciled that they've done this work, so they might as well just do their own.
Yeah.
You know, it is the retirement plan. Yeah.
Did you, in the same sense that OnlyFans creators, did you advertise on other platforms of social media? Like, did you, because you said before, like, you're not, I mean, people can't see, you're going to be blurred, but like, you're incredibly beautiful and like, you weren't into taking selfies and you're not into that kind of thing. Did you ever use like Instagram or TikTok or other platforms?
For me, I didn't have to because I had such high paying clients. I mean, I had a lot of wealthy men, you know, surgeons, lawyers, businessmen. So I didn't have to and market myself. And that's what I mean when the economy of how this works differs for different women. I mean, I shouldn't say this, but if a girl is lacking in personality and she's not very good at interacting with men on one-on-one, but she's really pretty, then for her, OnlyFans is great because you don't have to demonstrate personality. You can just take photos and create content and focus on volume and mass marketing your stuff.
Interesting.
Whereas, just say with me or a few girls that I know, it was much more niche.
I suppose with OnlyFans content and just like social media in general, you can edit yourself, you can script anything, but if you're having a one-on-one interaction or even just camming to like 600 people, it's live. Like you can't edit yourself, or you can't, like, you actually have to show up and I mean,
and this is why the empathy towards that guy was quite high for me, because you know he's forming these men, they form parasocial relationships with you, but how could they not if they're spending, a lot of these guys would spend, you know, multiple days a week with me, you know, whilst they're working their 9 to 5. I'm on the second tab just chit-chatting and entertaining. I'm that voice in the background. One of my biggest clients, we would Skype on a regular basis, and that relationship was with a lot of my clients was very real. It was a friendship. It becomes twisted in a way because there's a sexual element there as well. And even other girls in the industry coming, they meet their clients. A lot of men, they do believe they are the exception to the rule. And they're dating the girl that they're seeing online. So whilst there's a lot of foolish guys online who fall for the Nigerian scammer, there's a lot of guys that are manipulated, I guess, authentically, as well.
Did you know much about their personal lives? I mean, other than usually what they did for a living, did you know?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Everything. I mean, how could you not if you're interacting that intensely with them on an ongoing basis? I'm good at conversation. I think I am, at least. So, I knew quite a bit about a lot of the guys.
You said that they varied in age, demographic, work, Like, do you know if most of them were single, or do you know if most of them were married or in relationships? Like, what was the like percentage split, would you say?
It's hard to tell because a lot of them are going to lie. But I remember towards the end, I knew a lot of them were in a relationship. So I was on Skype with one of my guys. I was watching him do drugs. That was our thing. I didn't have to do anything special. He just wanted company whilst I watched him take drugs for 4, 5, 6 hours at a time sometimes. You know, making in a session like that, I was making like 6,000 USD in a day. With this guy, he receives a call during our Skype session and he forgets to put me on mute. And it's his girlfriend, gorgeous woman. And she's screaming on the phone, "Who the fuck are you with?" And through his teeth, he's just like, "Oh, I took too much Tylenol and I fell asleep during your missed calls." And then he got back to me and acted like normal. That's the first time it kind of felt real to me that this man would rather spend time with a girl for 6 hours doing drugs when he has a partner. A lot of men as well have fetishes and the rest that they don't talk about with their partners. And for them, they can get that experience with a sex worker.
Yeah.
That was quite common as well. So
Yeah, I did wonder if that was common. So, I mean, before I want to still talk about like the whole quitting and kind of industry. Before we get into that, I have a few questions I just want to make sure I hit. Somebody asked here, like, you didn't have a team or anything, it was just you. You weren't paying anyone else, or like the money was going directly to you. Like, you didn't have cameramen, you didn't have any type of co-workers or fees that you needed to kind of pay. You were keeping on.
aside from my accountant, they'll set you up as a company and then you pay yourself a wage and
Yeah.
the rest. But I think it's quite with OnlyFans, a lot of the time they will do collaborations and they'll have more outgoing costs like that. But with cam models, there's not as many outgoing costs unless you collaborate with a girl and rent out a hotel or something. But the money was going to me. Yeah.
Okay. So how many, I mean, you talked about when you became a little bit of a workaholic during COVID, but aside from COVID, I mean, during COVID, like how many hours on average were you working? You were working more in COVID, but yeah, like was it like a typical 8, 9?
70, 80 hours. But it was like a 24-hour job.
Wow, okay.
The guy was a big spender. Most of the time, he wanted exclusivity with me. So if I worked online entertaining a crowd for 6 hours, offline, I would spend 2-3 hours with him on Skype. So it was, and that's one guy. If I had 5 big tippers, I have to keep them all happy. So
Most of your work was fully online, like it was never in person work?
yeah, full online. Yep.
And can you run me through like a typical like day in your life back then?
So, and maybe this is the ADHD as well, but there was no structure. I could wake up whenever, I could log online whenever, get ready and just make money. And I think in a way that makes it harder to quit because you're rewarded without a need for any structure or discipline.
Freedom almost,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's pros to that, but there's great cons, especially when you retire. Like for me, the idea of going back to I would never go back to a 9 to 5 for one. I would never work for anyone else, and this is going to sound spoiled to a lot of people, but for the same time investment, I could be making so much more money. That's the perception in my mind.
Yeah.
So I'm like, ugh, why would I do that for 50 bucks?
I think I read a quote once and it was like, it stuck with me. It's like once the mind has been stretched to new dimensions, it's almost impossible to put it back
Yeah.
into dimensions. Like once you've probably experienced the freedom of not having to work a 9 to 5 and being able to make more money and, and yes, granted you're working a lot more hours, but it was on your terms. I think once you've done that, It's
it's
to go
and
back.
that's one of my ongoing battles this past year. I've had to really discipline myself, and what's that saying? The devil's playground is isolation. And
Ooh,
so
yeah.
yeah, so when I'm by myself or I'm bored or I'm online and I see handbags that I want to buy, I'm like, ooh, that temptation creeps up on me.
I have never heard
And
that before, but it's true. Yeah, the devil's
yeah,
playground is isolation. So you still have those that temptation of
oh, 100%, 100%. One of my friends, she was a stripper and she studied law during her stripping career, and then she got into camming, and then some life events happened which made her want to quit herself. She quit a year before me. If I didn't have her, it would have been even harder to have quit, to be honest. She was a great support, but she went back to doing law, but she had to start from the very bottom again. She's the only person I know who has managed that. Every other girl I know ends up returning in some form or another. It's just, yeah, unless you find a rich partner or a guy who can support you, or you manage to invest or save enough money in order to live off them, which is, partially what I did, thankfully. And sorry, just that's why my advice is to any girl who's currently in the industry is to increase their financial literacy, because there's nothing worse than doing something because you feel like you have to and not because you want to.
you saved and you invested while you
Yeah,
were okay, yeah.
as much as I could have, which makes me sick to my stomach. But yeah, I did manage to invest some money, and my partner, he's on quite good money, thankfully, so he definitely helps with that transition.
I want to talk now about this transition. I mean, out of the industry. Like, I have so many questions. I mean, what led you up to quitting? Like, why did you walk away from it?
So I mentioned how when I started, I was quite a naive girl, and it gave me a sense of purpose, and the money represented love and care. Um, Increasingly over time, I sort of understood that men weren't spending money because of me, but more to satisfy their own ego. It made them feel like they had purpose, that they were looking after someone. It gave them a sense of authority. And over time, I think as I cultivated self-worth, the money didn't feel the same to me anymore. And because of that, I became less tolerable to certain behaviors and empathy fatigue. You realize that you're not helping men, you're enabling them. And a lot of these men, if they're not spending money on you, they're going to spend it on someone else because they're addicted to the industry. They don't want help. That's why they are there day in and day out. And partly age as well. There's so much to this question, but I just knew that I was working so hard, so many hours. I would get stressed, it would affect my mental health, and then I would spend money on things that I didn't need to regulate my emotions. And I'll just keep cycling through that. And you become your environment. So if you're interacting with a lot of men who are emotionally unstable or lack self-esteem, you sort of rub off each other, really, and become codependent. I need my audience as much as they need me. There's that symbiotic relationship, and we feed it off each other's insecurities and lack of sense, lack of worth. I give them access to myself. It makes them feel something, and then they give me money, which also makes me feel something for my low self-esteem, and vice versa. The price just became too high, and again, I'm in my 30s now. How much longer am I going to stay in the industry to make how much more 100, 200, 300K for what? more bags that I don't need at the cost of my relationship.
It sounds like it was a lot of different factors that
Yeah.
led you to. So, at what point do you think, like, were you thinking about it for like months or years before you were like, no, this is it, I'm done? Or was it just something that happened quite rapidly, all these thoughts?
I think gradually, but I was in denial for a long time. And I think because I was so addicted to the lifestyle that I felt forced to stay within the industry and that I didn't have a choice, considering the lifestyle that I was leading. And so, despite that irritation, I would stick through it. But over time, that cognitive dissonance became too much for me to bear. And so I quit. But I knew that I would have to quit cold turkey because it's not like, oh, I'm quitting now. It's so easy. I've just made that decision. It's an addiction. Working in the industry is an addiction. And like addictions, you have those temptations and desire, and a lot of the time you relapse. And I haven't deleted the contacts of my phone. Even still, even if I haven't contacted a lot of these guys, at the back of my mind, I still have a little black book of men that I know would give me money at a click of a finger.
Keep that, do you keep those numbers and those names as like a bit of a safety net, or is it because maybe you still have that thought of I might go back, or like what is, why, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't think I would go back, but I think it's that a lot of women in this industry are hustlers. They're hyper independent women, and emotionally it can be really hard relying on a man. And that's something that we've had to talk about in therapy with counseling. I'm from the girl boss era. Having my own money is really important to me.
It got us all, didn't it?
And that, yeah, feeling of autonomy and independence. And so I guess it is like a safety net in a way, retaining those numbers on my phone. It sounds strange because it's like there's a contradiction there. It's still relying on men, but then I'm not in a relationship with them. So it is like, it's still classified as work in a way.
I don't know if you can, this might be a bit of a hard question to answer, but you mentioned it's because over time you kind of were developing this self-worth. How did you find that you were able to do that? Like, did anything else in your life change at the time that helped it? Or were you in therapy while you were still in the industry? Or do you think it was just age? Like, what do you think it was that had you develop a bit more self-worth while you were still doing the exact same thing? Does that make sense?
I got sick of the excess in my life, really, like all the shit I was paying and all of this. And I was questioning my behavior, and I was like, the time just keeps ticking. It doesn't stop moving. And the only way I can change my sense of self is to evaluate everything that I am doing in my life and who I'm surrounding myself with. One of my biggest tippers, he was a drug dealer and he went to prison. And that absolutely devastated me. We were very close. And I think also, you know, as people were going back to work, COVID was finishing, I was getting tired. One of my biggest tippers went, to prison. I sort of was understanding the fleeting nature of everything in the industry. And I realized that my self-worth can't rely on metrics that are so fleeting, like money, like popularity, like the status that I gained, because one day you have it and the next day you don't. And so I made that conscious decision that if I wanted to learn how to love myself, then I would have to remove from myself, from everything that I believe defined me, the sense of purpose I got from my audience, the money, all of that. And it was hard, and it's still hard. Yeah.
Strangely, I find that somewhat relatable, even though I'm not in the industry.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating how, yeah, I think people would assume that they could never relate to your experience, but I think a lot of people I mean, even just the idea of you, I mean, putting sex work aside, anyone who was at the top of their career making more money than they've ever made
Yeah.
and having built up, you could use the, obviously it's very different, but the way you built up clientele was similar to how somebody would build up customers in a business. And to sit there with all that money and all of that hard work and all of those customers, it takes a lot to put the money aside and the idea of what you've built to actually put yourself first and actually walk away. I think that takes a lot of courage, regardless of the fact
Yeah.
that
It's
within.
very lonely too. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, it's like if you decide to walk away from YouTube, everything that you built, it's the same with sex work,
Mm.
really. I had to question, who am I? Who am I without everything?
And that's scary.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's that understanding that everything in life is fleeting. Your sense of worth has to come from within rather than
Yeah, what you have
yeah.
to do or have what your accomplishments are. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's hard for a lot of women who are lacking in self-worth because you consider the culture that we're living in that is so materialistic, and if you're lacking in self-esteem, then yeah, you compare yourself to others. Am I pretty enough? Am I, what's wrong with me? Am I not entertaining? And then it makes you chase for more. Uh, and I think that's something a lot of girls don't think about. I've heard, oh, work, it can make you more confident. I don't think so. Even
So why not?
because your benchmark always increases. Your standards, how much money you're making. There's always someone who's earning more than you, and then you compare yourself to them. I've had every part of my body altered. I have boobs done, nose done, I have a baby. A lot of girls, you have access to more money, and then it opens up the world of, I don't know, body procedures. And sex workers, or a lot of them also, get a lot of, alterations, surgical alterations. It's just the culture these days for a lot of girls, even dating. I'm going on a tangent here, but it's no surprise to me that a lot of girls get into sex work these days. I once met a girl that she started stripping. She was only 19 years old because she wanted to afford a boob job, and all this dating culture around princess treatment, how to get princess treatment, be valued by men, and all of that is material worth. And with all these gender walls, it's like, oh, what's work? There you go. Before I started in this industry, I didn't think of getting as much work as I did. But when you're surrounded by that and your friends are all getting boob jobs and things like that, it becomes so normalized that you don't even think about. It's not even a big deal because half your social group all have their boobs and that done, and you have the money, so it's just a very accessible decision. Whereas when you're on a normal salary, you have more things to consider because the cost is higher. You don't have the disposable income. You don't have the people around you who can offer their experiences with the procedure. You can't justify it from a money perspective, like my boobs make me money. I can justify it as a business expense. When you're not working in the industry, it's like, do you actually need it? When you're in the industry, it opens up your field of choices of why you choose to do things. Like the decision making process is not the same compared to a regular woman. If
Yes.
that makes sense.
I can kind of see how that would make sense, especially if you're making money essentially off of the way you look.
Yep.
Can I ask you, you did touch on this, how did you look after your mental health and deal with, somebody wrote here, difficult or negative people that may have affected your mental health during your time in the industry?
Shopping. I didn't. You know, you
covered it up almost. I did that. I mean, just for different reasons. Like I shop to cover up things and like not actually deal with the problems at hand.
yeah, and I don't think you can, or even in a way you don't want to, because if you do deal with your mental health, that could impact the way you make your money. Because like I said, it's a symbiotic relationship between me as the cam model and the viewer. They live off, I'm emotionally reliant on them. If I'm emotionally stable and I don't need them, if I'm looking after my mental health and I have no longer emotional reliance or financial reliance on my viewers, then I'm not going to earn the money that I'm earning. So it's yeah. I don't know if that makes sense. I didn't explain that very
They kind of sensed that you were in a different place and they wouldn't have maybe wanted to give you the money or have the relationship with you if
because men want to feel like they're looking after you. That's where the majority of money, again, as a cam model, it's different from OnlyFans where it's more social transactions. These men aren't paying a girl because he wants to look after her or anything. He just wants that video or whatever. With us cam models, it's like having multiple sugar daddies. It's on a parasocial level. It's funny. I actually find OnlyFans more honest because it is transactional. It's like, here's some money, here's a sexual return. With camming and stripping in a way, escorting, it's much more emotional investment, especially when it comes to cultivating regulars. Yeah.
So, without going into too much detail, because I probably can't get in trouble because the platform we're on, like, would you say, like, what was the percentage? Like 50-50 in terms of, like, the intimate things and, like, talking? Like, what was, like, was it fairly...
I think for me, I really do believe that you dictate your audience. And as an entertainer, for me, it was much more based on the intimate connectivity, interaction sort of stuff, which was my downfall ultimately, because it meant that I couldn't do OnlyFans. Because if I could hire someone else to do my messaging for me, I would have done that. But they would know that they're not talking to me because I don't talk
Yeah.
like that. Whereas, and other girls, they are more sexual for a reason because they can't be bothered with the emotional interaction with men. It's tiresome. It's yeah, time consuming. So it's easier to just put on a show, do the sexual acts, build. Your finances are based on volume. Some people find that easier. So, for me, it's just, unfortunately, I just was never into the photos and videos and that sort of thing.
It seems that, I mean, I'd go so far as to say, I mean, I've only been talking to you for like an hour, but I think my assessment would be that you are more of a deep connector. I mean, here I'm like, I've even said stuff to you that I'm like, probably shouldn't have said that about my life. I think you naturally have a way of like connecting with people on a deeper level, and maybe it's just a personality type thing, whereas you have more of that deeper connection. And it's easier for you to do that, whereas some people maybe would be like, nah, just transactional, mass volume, can't be bothered talking to them. Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a...
Yeah. Well, that I definitely worked a little bit on. I probably work closer to, yeah. There's, I guess, two categories of workers. There's the volume base, and then there's the quality base. Quality versus quantity.
Quantity was obviously still important, but quality was...
Yeah, turnover is always important because, again, a guy could go to prison, a guy could get sick, a guy could lose his job. So you do need a mixture. But a lot of the big OF creators, yeah, they function on volume, which is great. You can, compartmentalize. You can have a relationship. You can not work if you can't be bothered. If you lose a guy, he's only paying $5. Someone else replaces him just as quickly. for me, it was not like that. So there was, you know, anxieties involved with that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have a kind of a bunch of questions that I had come in from some viewers.
Mm.
Did you ever have any bad or uncomfortable experiences? What was your approach to safety in that regard as well?
Obviously, the name change and age change, alter details about your life. I was quite good with setting boundaries. If I didn't want to do anything, I would just end the call. Whatever, you know. I was able to afford that ability because I had other guys that were paying me a lot of money. For a big bulk of girls, they don't have that luxury to say no, though. So again, I was in a privileged position where I didn't have to take on every job because I had guys that were willing to pay me to do very little. You have to market yourself and dictate the way men treat you. Yeah. And maybe that's because I am a bit older. I started a bit older. I didn't give into that peer pressure as much. Whereas a lot of the girls, they are quite young and they might give in. I don't know. A guy, you might get into a video call with a guy and he asks you to do something more than you want to do, and he's already paid you money. So, and you're there. Yeah. It's hard for some girls. Yeah.
You don't have that, like the boundaries and the self-confidence. And even if you're a bit fearful that you might lose them as a customer and maybe you're a bit of a people pleaser, I can see how you.
Yeah.
And that's a bit.
Or even, you know, you've worked all day, you haven't made a single dollar all day. You've been streaming for 6 hours and a guy comes along and is willing to pay for whatever. You feel pushed to say yes because you haven't made money all day. It's like a cafe, really. If you were a cafe owner and you haven't made anything, and then someone comes in with they ask for a plate of pasta with a dietary alteration, you're more inclined to say yes because you haven't made money all day.
It's a good analogy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that happens quite a lot to a lot of girls, and so their boundaries are pushed. They feel forced to. And actually, that's something else. A lot of the girls I've met in the industry, the majority of them, myself included, come from a history of poor mental health or financial instability. And so that's what makes it even harder to quit once they're in it. Like you have to be a particular type of person to choose this industry in the first place, considering how stigmatized it is.
Interesting.
I have rarely met someone of rational mind who comes from a healthy household and background that chooses to do this work on purpose. And maybe that's changing now because it's becoming so normalized, but usually somewhere in someone's history, there's something that drives them to making this decision in the first place.
I can totally edit this out, so if it's too personal, don't even just tell me. What do you think it was for you?
I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. I would come home crying from my office job. I lacked a sense of purpose because, again, all I ever wanted was to help people. I'm quite idealistic by nature. I just struggled so much with that routine, ADHD maybe, neurodivergency. And then suddenly I stepped into it and it solved all the problems that I perceived that I had at the time. Low self-esteem, and it made me feel like I was on top of the world. And so I became emotionally reliant on that. Yeah.
People say, but what type of woman gets into, what type of woman finds herself in this industry? But really, I mean, we have, there is so much that goes into someone's life from, say, they start at 26. I mean, from 0 to that age, there is so much that happens and goes on. And that's the one thing that I'm trying to be a bit more aware of is I'm aware of what I'm dealing with. I'm aware of what happened in my past that led me to have the beliefs I have now and that go on in my mind that I would like to change. And that's why I think a little bit of compassion as well is needed, not only for myself, but just in terms of this whole conversation, because you really have no idea what beliefs formed at a young age.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, we didn't all grow up. Most of us, I don't think, grew up in fully functioning system. You know, our families, our friendship circles, what we dealt with, it was all just the best.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
Exactly. Exactly. And again, because especially nowadays, self-esteem is so tied to extrinsic measures of worth, like how attractive you are, how much money you have. When you're talking about someone who lacks self-esteem to begin with, they're going to be motivated to do things that they believe will help them achieve those extrinsic measures. You know, you make money in order to buy things, again, that you don't need. It's a whole cycle, really.
Did anyone ever recognize you in your real life?
So on Twitch, I did do a few streams out and about in, but it happened only once. But yeah, I think that's the other thing. The internet's so big, you can retain some anonymity unless you're like a really large creator. And that's the other thing with campsites. You can geo-block. You can block certain countries or locations from seeing your content. So some girls will do that as well to add a layer of protection to their identity.
So you never had like a stalk or anything like that?
I had a guy who was quite in love and obsessed, sent me lots of love letters and things like that. For the most part, I would say that my guys were quite good. And I think in a way I'm fortunate about that because I've been able to retain my empathy for men. I've seen a lot of disgusting things, but I've been treated very well as well. So yeah. Whereas a lot of women, they come out of it hating men and hating women as well.
So you feel like your view of men and intimacy didn't change at all, or?
I think my empathy increased in the sense that most people have some kind of story that leads them to behaving the way that they do. But yeah, towards the end, my frustration increased because when people are desperate for connection or want to feel a sense of authority or satisfy their ego, it can lead them to doing things that aren't so good, be quite manipulative, hold money over you, and that sort of thing. Yeah. It's speaking back a bit about quitting, and a lot of girls, it's quite isolating because a lot of girls have a distrust with women because of poaching, girls stealing clients, and then they can only connect with the men who support them. It's quite like a lot of my friends, they no longer befriend any other girl in the industry because there's so much mental illness and toxicity that it's a liability, potential financial liability, befriending another girl in the industry.
There's not co-worker to co-worker support of everybody's kind of scared that somebody's going to steal their client.
Yeah, or like fuck you over or steal clients, or there's a lot of that rivalry as well. There's a lot of jealousy, you compare yourself. So, again, you're talking about a lot of women who lack self-esteem in the first place. And then if your friend is earning more money than you or whatever, like there's just a lot of that toxicity. Or maybe a lot of girls do, they'll collab, but they won't form real friendships. And then, you don't feel like you can connect with people who don't do the work because they can't share your experiences, or their reality is so far removed from yours. And so, a lot of girls end up quite isolated. The only people they can rely on, the human connection, are their clients.
Yeah.
Yeah, and over time you form a distaste and disgust, but who else do you have?
Yeah, wow. Okay. I never even considered how much it would isolate you and the people that you would turn to and almost get support from. It's a bit of a strange dynamic because they're paying you in a way.
Yeah. I
interviewed somebody in a recent interview. He said most of his friends were in the industry, and he felt like he was living a bit of a double life. Did you ever feel that way? I mean, obviously it was a bit of a different situation, but at the time, were most of your friends in the industry, or there was that worry?
Well, I'm from, and so I have like a couple of childhood friends and that, and they know that's fine. And yeah, I have my siblings. I told my sister knew, but I told my brother maybe a year and a half ago, and he's been very kind and supportive of me. But in general, meeting people and making friends in your 30s is hard anyway.
Tell me about it.
But it's just a different, yeah, it's an awkward thing. Like, even I absolutely hate when I have to catch up with my partner's friends and couple situations. Sometimes my partner's friends, girlfriend or whatever, wants to get to know me, and I feel like I have to hide who I am. And that is exhausting because, again, I really love connecting with people. You build rapport through sharing experiences and talking about life, and you just can't do that. And that feels really lonely because, a lot of people ask, what do you do for work? And things like that. And it's just constant lying, and one lie leads to another. And so, yeah, it's leading a double life. I did that for, 6 years or whatever. I'm still doing that because my partner's, I'm not out of the closet or anything. And that's out of respect for him as well. Like, I don't want his friends knowing and looking me up on porn sites. So yeah, and yeah, especially in the first year, I had to disconnect with a lot of my girlfriends who work in the industry, because it's like that. I guess the analogy, it's like trying to quit alcohol but still going to the bar where everyone else is drinking. And I was, yeah, trying to quit sex work, and you're seeing your friends still earning money that you used to earn, going on trips, buying things, and that's hard, and even explaining to people why you're quitting, because you don't want others to feel like you think that you're better than them, or it's quite a difficult thing.
I can imagine it would be really difficult.
So I'm not very articulate today. It's just
No, I
yeah.
it's really fine. Oop, there goes my drink. I completely understand what you're saying.
It's that desire to get to know someone and being stunted in that ability, because I'm sure I could get along with a lot of these girls or whatever on a deeper level, but I feel like I can't. And people aren't stupid either. Like, they're like, oh, she's quite secretive, she always changes the topic, or she doesn't talk about herself. Like, people can sense that, human nature.
Do you think that you'd ever be able to open up about that, or do you think that not something that you'd ever really...
I'm a very open person in general. So if it's anything, my own relationships with people I meet, I don't care. I'll talk about anything. But it's more anything pertaining to my partner, his family, his connections. Then yeah, there's that barrier there.
You said that your sister knew, and your parents, like, do they not know about it? And or were they...
So yeah, my father died when I was quite young, so maybe that's factored into all of this as well. But my mum, I was able to get away lying to her, so she doesn't know. But yeah, my sister knew. She's 8 years older than me, and yeah, I told my brother recently after I had quit. My family's quite religious, so they, my siblings cared about my mental health and the rest, but they always came from the perspective of, we're all on our own journey. So I am going to figure it out, but they're, there for support without condoning it, obviously, because it's against their morals and that.
You sound like you're quite close with your sister. Would you say that you're quite close with your brother and your mum as well, or probably your sister?
Not my mother. I had a lot of friction with her. My sister was close to him. My brother and I, we didn't speak for a period of time because we just had a estranged relationship. But after quitting, I made a priority to connect with my siblings more, and that's when I told him, because I didn't want to live a double life if I was wanting to build an honest relationship with him.
I suppose because of the way you are and your personality, you never felt the need to like one up or, you know, move into different parts of the industry like pornography or OnlyFans. Like you never kind of felt that pressure to.
I was afforded the ability to not have to go beyond because of the type of clientele I had, thankfully.
Yeah.
But again, my ethics around this industry have changed. So I decided to quit, you know, completely. But had they not changed, I probably would have considered going down the OnlyFans route because it's less interactive. From a business point of view, it makes sense, I guess. But for me, it was like I didn't want to do any of it.
You mentioned that you had friends in the industry. Is there anything that you'd like to share about their work and their experiences that you think that the viewers might find interesting?
Yeah, it takes a very particular personality type to be able to compartmentalize the work, and it's extremely intrusive in your regular life. It affects all my friends' dating, for instance, their ability to date and meet men, because men either they treat you like a novelty because every guy likes the idea of, you know, being with a woman that's perceived as highly desired. It feeds into their ego. But then after a while, they might get jealous. Or after a while, they'll compete with your highest clients. Or even as one of the biggest things a lot of the girls I know struggle with is they struggle dating men, because it's like, for an hour of my time on this day, I could be earning $1,000 with another guy. And so they are unable to separate their romantic relationships to the dynamics they have with clients.
Yeah, well, it would it warps their sense of connection and
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, wow. Okay, that's a whole
I mean, I could go into a whole dating thing because it's a whole topic in of itself. But yeah, it's something that a lot of girls, they don't think about, because when the money is good, when you're doing really well, you're living in the moment, you don't think about the aftermath and how it impacts you, because yes, you don't understand the true cost of things until you have to pay the price.
Yeah, wow, that's true. Yeah.
And so you know, you're spending money and you think it's always going to be great, but then again, the next month, another girl comes along who's, you know, there's always someone who's younger and hotter, whatever. And even if there's not, maybe the guys that are tipping you today, tomorrow, they lose their jobs. There's so many things beyond your control. That's why I tell girls who are in the industry to invest their money, because the likelihood of you wanting to go back to a 9-to-5 job is going to be near zero. You're coming from a high dopamine environment where you're receiving a high reward. So you have to prepare for that. Or, you know, maybe you're over 30, maybe you want to have a family, maybe you're just emotionally burnt out. So you have to keep that in mind whilst you're still in it. Yeah.
What do you see for your future? I mean, obviously now you've been out of the industry and you're still kind of finding your way. Like, what do you see for your future, and what would you like for your future?
Well, I mentioned that I want to start a family. So that was another reason why I quit, because I knew that I couldn't just go from working and interacting with hundreds of men in a day to falling pregnant and having a baby. I sort of had to mentally prepare myself for a different stage in life. So, you know, being 34, I gave myself like a year. And yeah, I would like to have a family, but right now I'm essentially a stay-at-home girlfriend, and it's very boring. I'm you know, an internal hustler. At heart, you know, like I am very driven by autonomy. And so not having that, it kills my ego.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, so would you say that at the moment you're spending quite a lot of time like at home?
Yeah, I've taken up sewing classes,
Oh, lovely. No.
I- yeah, I have tried taking up different hobbies and that, but again, you do one thing, after 3 months, you're bored. And
Yeah.
it's just finding that next thing that's rewarding. But, and again, I come from a corporate background and all of that, but you kill your resilience because again you're used to high reward with no discipline. I could wake up and still make my all of that. It's hard work emotionally in other ways, but in terms of the skills required for a 9 to 5, the persistence and resilience, all of that, then those skills have completely degraded within me. And I just get bored by things very quickly. I'm like, what the hell do I do? So,
But do you also think, because
yeah,
a lot of neurodivergent people and people with ADHD, they tend to get bored with things quickly, yes. But if they find something, and I mean, for you, it sounded like at one point in life it was camming because the hours you were putting into it
yeah,
is more than a lot of people could be bothered
yeah.
with anything. So do you think it would just, I mean, I don't know what your plans are in terms of like once you have a family, if you want to be a stay-at-home mom or if you'd like to start a business or maybe go down the road of going back to study or doing something. But do you think that, have you been someone that does kind of hone in on a topic and like hyperfixate and pour
Yes.
everything into that? So do
Yeah.
you think just as a matter of you needing to find like what that might be for you, whether it be children, whether it be study again or like some type of business or something?
Well, coming for me was the only thing in my life that I felt like I really stuck to because of how fast it happened for me. And I'm not sure anything in life, anything else in life will provide the same level of speed in terms of outcome. And that I think that's why I stuck with it for so long because I didn't have to cultivate patience. I mean, I could say that honestly, but it's true. And again, with ADHD or a lot of girls in this industry, when you're rewarded, it motivates you to keep going. And so, not experiencing reward immediately, you lose that motivation. Whereas with sex work, you're getting that reward, and so you are motivated to stay. And yeah, that's why I lasted so long.
It's interesting. I do think we're now more and more younger people are experiencing that as well with the instant gratification of TikTok
Yeah.
and social media. Yeah, patience is something that's kind of dying, I think, within us and attention span in general. You seem to have managed to separate your work from your personal life to some degree, and you've managed to almost, I think, experience something that a lot of people in the industry don't get to experience with your level of and God, I can't say the word. You were quite anonymous, you didn't get hounded in the street. Or do you ever worry though that anything that you did in terms of camming or your time in the adult entertainment industry might come back to haunt you? Or do you think that you're pretty
To be honest, I reached a point where I afforded my ability to not have to work. I mean, these days, if I'm working, it's for leisure, really. And but again, that's such a rare circumstance. So I don't really see myself struggling to get work because I don't see myself working for a 9 to 5 anyway. And I think that's the perspective of a lot of girls who are on that kind of money, even if they're not. Well, my friend, for instance, she works for a law firm now, and you can retain your anonymity in a weird way because the internet is just so big and your content gets buried. Like who's going to look me up in 20 years time, like
most of the people who have been on the internet in 20 years, even if they've got like a million subscribers, they will most likely be forgotten and replaced by somebody else.
yeah. And I mean, I'm all over the internet on various sites, but who's going to look me up? And to be honest, I've thought about this question. One of your questions that you sent me was children and if they find out or whatnot. For me, I don't treat my past with shame because it's made me who I am. And again, we all do the things that we do for a reason. Do I condone the industry? No, but I understand why I did it. And if, I don't know, my kids or whatever asked me, I would just be honest with them that I did it because I thought I had to at the time. I've seen that question pop up, like, what happens if your kids want to do it? I would ask them why, like, what's your motivation to want to do it in the first place? Because a lot of the time it's not for the sex work itself. It's not because a person wants to be on camera naked and entertain men. It's for the money to afford the handbag. It's to make money for surgery. It's because they don't feel like they belong anywhere. They want a sense of identity, of belonging, and they see girls who do OF online are popular or whatever, like I would be querying that. And if they still want to go ahead with that, then I would lay out the reality of the work from my experience. Hopefully they choose not to, but if they did, then I would give them the resources so that they come out as unscathed as possible. There's no way that anyone could have told me not to do it. It would have pushed me in much deeper. And the deeper you're in it, the more reasons you have to find to justify why you're doing it. And so you find coping mechanisms to keep going because you want to continue making that money and living that lifestyle. And I understand, it's just the society that we're living in these days.
What's something you think people don't know or don't expect about the camming world?
I think there's that stereotype that most girls in the industry are all bimbo airheads, and just the focus on the money element. It's so much deeper than the money aspect because, again, the majority of sex workers, they don't make a lot of money. So what is it that's actually driving them to do it if they're not making that much money? And people don't think about that. And that's where they lack empathy. They think it's all just really greedy and money hungry women. Maybe that's the case. When you look at the statistics, most aren't. So what's driving them? Yeah, people don't ask that question.
Is there anything else that you would want other girls or women to know who are thinking of starting camming or OnlyFans, or, I mean, if you just want to talk about camming, that's fine, but just entering this industry, is there anything that you'd want them to know?
If you have any emotional or financial insecurities or self-esteem issues, it's not going to solve any of your problems. It's just going to take your problem to a different plane, because that's just the human nature, right? You just look for a problem elsewhere. You solve one problem, you find a problem elsewhere. if you have low self-esteem in regards to your appearance, work in the industry isn't going to make you feel better. You'll just go find something. Again, the surgery addiction, lots of girls in the industry get addicted to surgery and all that. Financial example, just to jump into another realm, you might think you have money problems right now and that work in this industry will solve all your financial problems. But guess what? If you're bad with no money, you'll probably go be bad with money as well. And so, your lifestyle creeps up on you. You buy a handbag, you buy a house, you buy a car. You've just increased your debt. Now you're forced to stay in the industry because you can't just quit if you have to pay back the bank. And that's happened to so many girls that I know, because when times are good, you're making money, you're like, yeah, I'm going to buy myself a car. And then the next money, you're tired and you just can't be bothered. You can't just quit. You have debt now. And so it just, any problem that you have, it just is taken to a different level. Again, the very few people that I've seen have come out of this winning are the ones that can emotionally separate themselves from the work. Because again, most girls aren't making money for money, but what it represents. Because if they were making money for money, then they'd be able to keep it in their pocket. Instead, they're spending it.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
You know, it's what it represents. And this is our generation of young people. It's low self-esteem. It's, you know, it's superficial. It's consumerist society. So yeah, any issues that you have, it's not going to resolve it. It will just take it to a different level. Yeah.
I mean, you already mentioned this, that you kind of condone the industry now. I'd like to hear a little bit more about why that is. I'm also aware that we're like major.
No, it's okay. I have nowhere to be. I'm against a bored stay-at-home girlfriend now.
With a hobby of sewing, though.
Yeah, I'm tapering it because that's the other thing. I've always jumped the gun with hobbies and spent so much money. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not making this kind of money anymore. I have to actually taper my spendings and not jump the gun like I used to. So,
it's like a urgent thing as well, though. I'm convinced.
Plants, you know, like if I showed you the excess of everything I bought, it's sickening. It's sickening. I've gone into every hobby, ceramics, plants. You know, I bought everything that you could possibly ever need. Every appliance, you know, the Dyson, the this, the that. Like,
I don't mean to expose myself also, but a part of me wonders, is that potentially like lack of financial literacy? But I'm like, maybe not. I think I've gotten better. I honestly think it's like a neurodivergent thing. I just think we like, because I've done the same thing, and I've now realized I can't just go all in on things. Like one day I can't just look at something and be like, oh, I want to study that, and I should buy that, and I should do all that, and like set this up. It's like, no, how about we just like take a class first?
Yeah. It affects your self-esteem as well, because you feel like you're always failing and you can't stay with anything. And again, I think that affects a lot of sex workers as well, because you feel like you're incapable.
Yeah. No, I can see how that would be the case.
Yeah.
Do you think that outsiders criticize sex work too much? I mean, you said that you don't condone it. If you could kind of explain a little bit.
They criticize it because they don't understand. So I don't hold it against people that criticize it. When you're in it, you realize the mental health implications, why people participate in the industry. But it's like, I guess, any addiction, really. You don't condone people who drink to excess or do drugs or whatever, but you can empathize with why they may do it. And that's the same with sex work. It's easy to judge on the surface, but I think with most people, if they delve into a little bit, they'll be more understanding. But most people aren't given that opportunity because there's very few people that are willing to talk about it or even have the ability to articulate their experience in a way that is relatable or can be understood. I think people do judge, but only because they don't have an opportunity to understand. Where do you even look? You know, like,
I mean, do you look to the Bonnie Blues in the world who are saying things like, "Oh, I'm going to sleep with your husband," and who are just rage baiting? Of course, if that's the only exposure you're getting to these people in the industry, you're most likely going to feel like a potential hatred or dislike for them.
Yeah. The Bonnie Blues and that, they're so smart because they are working on a volume based economy. That's why it's, you know, about marketing and attracting as much attention as possible. It will serve her well when she wants to quit. This is her working for it. She can retire next year. She'll have content for, you know.
Yeah.
If she's good at managing her money, that is, and not buying cars and that, but she's set for life. I think a lot of people within the industry, girls especially, because they're in it, they have to justify it. And so it's hard to find people who have done it and, I guess, retired and why they retired. Because obviously if you're looking to current workers, they're going to give you, you know, reasons why they're doing it. I don't know if that makes sense.
One more question. A viewer asked, what do you think about the sexual liberation movement, and do you think that there needs to be more laws and regulations that advocate for sex workers? Big question, by the way. I've left like the biggest one for truly the end of my brain capacity.
I'm not even sure if it is the liberation thing that is motivating girls to do this work. I think that's an afterthought. I think that's the coping mechanism to justify why they are doing what they're doing. I think the reason why people get into this work is the reasons I discussed before, how the emphasis on consumerism, all this pretty privilege and princess treatment, and all the gender wars, all that. It's like, if I hate men, I'm going to use them for money, and my value lies in the way I look and how much guys spent money on me. That's what drives a young woman. I mean, I've never talked to a 20-year-old girl that is thinking about the sexual liberation and this and that. Like, they're not thinking in those terms. It's more about, I want to afford that handbag. I'm seeing all these high value girls with Hermes bags who are men. So what am I going to do? I'm going to find a sugar daddy.
I've never in my life, that I'm aware of, by the way, I've never had this much of a conversation with a former or, current or former worker. And I just want to say that I think you're really lovely, and I really love you.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate the fact that you were able to have this conversation with me today. And I think it's going to open up a lot of people's minds to the people who partake in it, and that at the end of the day, we're all just people struggling with
it's true
with. And I just wanted to thank you so much, and I really appreciate
that's okay. I'm quite passionate on this topic. I do see a lot of young girls get into it and then they find it hard to quit because there's no support, I guess. It's so heavily stigmatized. It's hard to take advice from people who haven't done the work as well. Like, you find even things like this, it sounds ridiculous, but there's a lot of content creators in the female personal development space, and a lot of girls that I interact with, who are sex workers, they can't relate to that sort of content because their self-esteem is affected, or things like that. There's no voice of someone who's done it and has quit in the industry. You feel like you have no one to turn to, which adds another layer of isolation. And again, isolation is the worst thing for any kind of addiction when it comes to an addiction to lifestyle and the rest.
Creator at the moment, I think her name's Nala Ray, who she got out of it. But I definitely agree. I don't think there's not that many people talking about it, which could very well be a niche that maybe needs to be filled.
I think even Nala Ray, I'm not sure if it's recording now. I'm just talking off the cuff.
Yeah, it's like 5 minutes to go.
Nala, I think because she quit, I guess, for religious reasons. Which is fine as well, but a lot of people aren't religious, for instance, so they're not going to resonate with the message of, like,
no, you're right.
How can I don't have God, I don't believe in religion, so why would I give up my lifestyle? There's not that greater purpose or reason
that might resonate with them.
And then a lot of girls, they don't have the financial literacy, so they haven't saved any money, and then how can they quit? What are they going to do?
I mean, I think Nala Ray had like a really large platform because she OnlyFans, so she had like Instagram to fall back on, she had TikTok, but for maybe other camming girls, they might not have that to fall back on. Very good point. Fortunately, we have to cut it here because it's going to time out.
I ran a little tangent at the end, but
it was great.
There were so many things, even from a business point of view, and because I think that's so important in a way.
Honestly, you did so. I am so excited to hear what you have to say. I wanted to end today's video by sharing a few more points and cons that my guest actually later emailed through to me. My guest really wanted to get these points across because she felt like she didn't want regular women to compare themselves to sex workers or be tempted by the money. So she sent me through a few little things that she hoped that I would include, and I would love to hear your thoughts and whether or not you'd like me to keep doing videos like this. And if you're someone who feels like you want to share your story, even if it's got nothing to do with work, just feel like it's something interesting, I would love to hear from you. My email is in the description as always. Feel free to reach out. There's some cons that my guests and I didn't get a chance to talk about today are things like substance abuse. Apparently it's quite common in work circles. Also, apparently the pipeline to escorting is quite common because men will offer more money if they have the opportunity to meet you, and this can cross personal boundaries which you might feel you have to comply with, especially if you're financially reliant on them. She also mentioned that workers witness degrading behavior or be paid to do degrading things, either to themselves or the clients. For example, fetishes containing drugs, blackmail, certain role-playing such as age play, cheating fantasies. You'll apparently see the worst of humans in this type of work. We touched on this a little bit, but a distrust of females in the space due to the toxic work environment, jealousies and insecurities that arise. It can also have a huge effect on dating and one's perception of intimacy and what it means to be valued. She also wanted me to really get across that sex workers can a lot of the time develop an extreme distrust of men due to the exposure of the men within the industry, the infidelity, the financial abuse due to the financial dependence and emotional abuse that can take place. There's also a level of distrust and interpersonal complications with men outside the industry. For example, in dating, fetishizing jealousy to you and to clients, men competing as financial providers within a relationship, men comparing their financial contribution in your life to your clients, which affects their self-esteem, men competing for your time with your clients. And these are some things that she dealt with in her own relationship. The empathy and emotional fatigue, spending quality time with a partner after a day entertaining clients. There is also sexual jealousy that men see you in a sexy way. After a day in lingerie, the last thing she said that she could be bothered doing is acting sexy to her partner. There is also a lot of anxiety that is due to the unpredictable nature of self-employment, busy and slow days. There's also this social isolation and consequently lack of support when quitting due to the shame or a desire to remain anonymous. There's also significant body image issues that are exacerbated due to increased focus on appearance. And these are sometimes made worse due to having the accessibility to so many procedures, the constant comparison to others due to the superficial nature of the work. And this is apparently another reason why our guest today quit. She said that she was the most toxic version of herself whilst working, which made her resent who she was when she was working. And it's because she was unable to compartmentalize. And she believes that most women are unable to do this successfully. And it's also why she does not recommend women do this work in general. She also talked a little bit about this naivety that she had in regards to helping men, and that she had to reconcile that this was false in a large number of cases. She claims that she sent men to therapy because they were in love with her. And understanding the consequences of the parasocial relationships actually began to make her resent the work. It brought out narcissistic qualities where she felt that she became entitled and okay with manipulating men in order to make more money, because men spending money meant that she was valuable and worthy. She doesn't think that the men were stupid because of the level of emotional intimacy that they're experiencing with her, but it was just something that came along with the job. She also wanted me to really emphasize her reasons for quitting, being not only age and the age that she was, but the realization of the societal implications to men, to women, and to everybody, and the desire to focus on her relationship and to eventually have children. And that a lot of workers she knows actually give up on the idea of children and marriage and having a family. As she gained increased self-worth, the realization that the money that she was earning was a product of trauma. It no longer felt fulfilling, and she had a lot of difficulties quitting. She dealt with mourning lost relationships with clients and co-workers, mourning the identity, the money, and the lifestyle. She also wrote to me in her email that she grew a disordered view of money and time and her own intrinsic value. She became a sole income earner and a provider for her extended family, which I can imagine would also be somewhat stressful. Another note she wanted me to touch on was that men rely on the industry, often because of they can share an intimate side of themselves they otherwise would not be able to do with most women. Men do not feel judged by workers. In her career, she experienced men that were incredibly vulnerable with her about their emotions and struggles. And as a cam model, she gave them the ability to feel seen. And this can be addictive for many men. Many men have no time for relationships or to see a woman in person due to work or even just emotional barriers. You're as close to a girlfriend without the same commitment level. They are satisfied emotionally and sexually, but it gives them an outlet to feel a sense of purpose. And she felt that this was true for her regulars. I just wanted to share those little points that our guest today sent me via email. And I genuinely love talking to her, and I hope that you got as much out of this conversation as I did. Again, a huge thanks to Midas Merge for sponsoring today's video. Without them, videos like this wouldn't be possible. So I really appreciate them and also your support on today's sponsor. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on today's video topic. I'm going to have my other 2 most recent interviews linked here if you want to check those out. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.